Okay, folks, this is Lucia doing a taste of country with Lucia Butler. I've got a very special guest here. One unfortunately couldn't make it earlier on to my show previously, so we have Mick Flavin here. Welcome along, Mick.
How are you doing, Lucia? Yeah, sorry about today now. Unfortunately, some family matters couldn't just make it back to the show, and I had to go up to see my sister's husband up in Wood Green, and he wasn't very well, so didn't get back in time, but I apologise to all your wonderful listeners, and hopefully we can make up for it now with this interview.
Okay, Mick, I mean, we all know these things do happen and can't be helped, so I'm sure we've got very understanding listeners for irishcountrymusicradio.com, don't we, listeners?
Very good indeed, yeah.
Okay, Mick, you started off music. First of all, we better tell the listeners where you come from, because we've listeners all over the world. So you come from Ireland. What part of Ireland?
Come from the place called County Longford. It's right in the heart of Ireland in the Midlands, and from a wee spot called Ballinamok. And we were brought up on a very small farm there. My father worked a small farm, 16 acres of land, and there were 6 of us in the family, 3 boys, 3 girls. When the older siblings, I suppose, got went off and immigrated to England and different parts, and I was kind of around. I always worked around home, and I did spend a few years in Dublin, all right, but spent most of my time in Longford, and based in Longford all the time, yeah, and so we had some wonderful times. We hadn't much money, but we had a lot of fun, and we were very happy. And we had an old record player in the house, which was it was priceless, really, because we played country music on it from morning till night, well, mostly at night, because we'd be out working during the day.
There's a surprise, country music you played. But did you have a gramophone, or was it the old needle record player?
Just the old needle record player, yeah. And we used to get country music albums from different people. I remember getting some old Hank Williams albums, and I'm talking about now 1958, and that's a long time ago, yeah. You probably wouldn't remember back that far, Lucy. Yeah.
I wouldn't remember back, Mick. I'm way too young for that. But there you go. Now, can you just tell me how old you were when, or what inspired you to start singing or playing an instrument, Mick? I know you played a guitar anyway.
Well, there was always a lot of music in the family. My father was a very, very good singer. He was a sean-nós singer, and he came from Listowel in County Kerry, and he went to work in England in the 1930s, and my mother came from Longford, so they happened to meet up and got married about 1937. And so the eldest boy, Tony, he was born in England just in 1939.
Do you know what part that was he was born, Mick?
Oh God, I cannot tell you that now, but I can't remember. But honestly, my father and mother didn't stay too long because the war broke out then in 1939, and they were bombing London, and so they left out of there and came back home to Longford to live. And even though my father would still always go back to work for the winter time, when the hay would be cut and saved, and the turf would be saved and all that kind of stuff. That was our job when we were growing up, you see, to look after all those things, and potatoes and all that kind of stuff.
We call them spuds, don't we, really?
Yeah, well, that's yeah, we call them that too, indeed. But no, I always loved music, and I actually sang at a road show that used to travel around Ireland. It was called McFadden's Road Show, and they were putting off a show one night in Drumlish, and that was about like 4 miles from me at home, so I hit off on the bicycle anyway into Drumlish anyway. And
how old were you then, Mick?
I was 10 then, just 10, yeah. And I heard they were running these competitions, talent competitions. And
tell the truth now, did your parents know you went to that, or not? Did you sneak off?
No, they didn't. They didn't know a thing about it, because we could end up in Timbuktu on the bike. It wouldn't matter where you wouldn't tell them where you were going. But anyway, didn't I enter the competition anyway? And because I sang this song at the time. It was Dr. Hook had a huge hit with it. It was called "She Was Only 16." Do you remember that song?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and
I'm a little bit older than that now, like yourself.
Yeah, but you still look like pretty young, I know. But anyway, didn't I win the competition? And they gave me this little cup, a silver cup, and Sure, I came out of the place anyway and hopped on the bike anyway and out the road like a bullet and back into the house, this big long lane into our house, and jumped off the bike and ran in and showed the cup to my mother, and sure, it was like bringing home the Sam Maguire, you know.
There you go. Did you ever really bring home the Sam Maguire, Mick?
No, unfortunately Longford didn't, no. But did Wexford ever either?
We did. We did. Not me. We did. I think we were the first team to win the double in the beginning. No, I think in the record, Wexford was the first team to win the double.
You want a great memory though, wouldn't you?
Sure, we won't talk. We won't talk about that. So at 10 years of age, and did you play the guitar then, Mick, or where did you get your first guitar?
The first guitar, my brother bought a guitar in Denniston's shop in Longford, and it was £4 at the time. And he brought home this guitar anyway, and sure, he was trying to learn the guitar and I was trying to learn the guitar. But I remember my mother going to Longford that time. They used to always go on the bus, you see, because we had no transport, we had no car, nothing like that. We had a pony and cart, all right, and that was it. And then she came back home anyway with this beginner's book for guitar lessons and that kind of stuff, and so I tried to learn these chords off, you know, like C and D and A and G and all that anyway. So, but the problem was with the guitar, the action, you see, was the strings were much higher than way higher than the fingerboard, and when you had pressed them down, it took, you know, it really cut the fingers, and and there was nights you'd be nearly crying with the pain in your fingers, you know.
But you persisted and
I got a few old things off and learned a few old chords on that. And in 1966, I was just finished the technical school in Ballinamuk, and I got a chance to go and play in a band. And
name of the band? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do remember it very well. Actually, there was it was called the Bright Lights, and there was 4 lads in it and a girl. And the girl was a lead guitar player. She was a great guitar player. So we rehearsed for months, and we started off playing down in a hall in Leitrim. It was called Maguire's Hall in Cornery, and that time it was all just like dry halls. There was no bars. There was a mineral bar, all right, and that was it. And we used to play all those parochial halls, they called them at the time. And you see fellas bring in the girlfriend, or you know,
for the listeners that wouldn't know, that would be like the parish church, the hall for the parish church.
That's right, yeah. So anyway, we stuck at that for about 2 years, and we did get an opportunity actually to go professional. I remember Larry Cunningham, who was huge at the time. In fact, he was after recording Lovely Leitrim, and he was very popular, not just here but in Ireland, but across in the UK as well. And another man called Peter Sheridan, he used to manage different bands. But anyway, they wanted to take the band and put a new van round us and a new PA system and new suits and all that. But what happened was, the guy that we were working for at the time, he wouldn't hear tell of it. He just said, no, if we're going to make it, we'll make it on our own bat, you know. So the whole thing fell through, and then I went off to work in Dublin. How long did you stick together then before it fell through? No, about 6 months later. Oh. 6 months later. Well, we didn't know what actually happened from the meeting. That they went up one Sunday. The guy that owned the band, and one of the lads, the fella that was doing lead singing. I wasn't the lead singer at the time. I was just singing rock and roll that time. I was doing a lot of Buddy Holly songs, and I wasn't even singing country music that time. And because I love rock and roll as well, Buddy Holly and Eddie Corcoran and Elvis and all them. Yeah. So do I indeed. 60s, 70s. Yeah. And so anyway, we kind of found out about 6 months later what happened. We were getting the opportunity, and the opportunity wasn't taken. So we all felt a bit, you know, we didn't like that. So we lost interest after that, and unfortunately the band broke up then. So I'd say we were about 2.5 years on the road in total, yeah. And we could have been huge, because that was the start of the whole show band era, and like Big Tom came along in 66, and Ray Lynham in 69, and Dermot Hegarty came along around that time, 67, I think 68. But there were so many bands. There was over 500 bands that time in Ireland, and but anyway, we lost that opportunity, and I, as I say, I went off working to Dublin, and then in 75 I came back from Dublin, and I built a house just outside Longford. Myself and my father, God rest him, he was alive at the time, and anyway, I met up with a couple of lads and we started a pub band, and we...
What's the name of that band, Mick?
The pub band was called the Country Travellers.
Oh, lovely.
Country Travellers, yeah. And we kind of played all around the Midlands and did a lot of weddings, and of course the pub scene was terrific that time during the 70s and into the 80s. And but anyway, in 86 then I met up with Declan Nerney one night after a
townie of yours, indeed, for all the listeners.
Right,
Longford man as well.
Yeah, he is a neighbour indeed, yeah. So we met up one night after we did a charity night in a pub called the Cairn Hill in Drunish, and we actually got to talking, and I was singing old songs that I had remembered from the late 50s in that Hank, and he said to me that night, he was playing with Brian Call at the time, and he said to me, he said, you know what, Mickey says, I think you should go and record a few songs. And I wasn't really taking him serious, but I met him about a month later, and he said, I know there's a little studio in Athlone. So we went over, him and I, and we recorded 2 songs, and we played them on a cassette tape coming home in his car at the time, and sure, I thought they were great, you know.
So Declan Nerney inspired you to go on, he pushed you, and well done, Declan.
Yeah, and so that was 86, so we brought out the cassette with 10 songs in it. And just before Christmas of 86, and it got played. At the time there was a lot of pirate radios all around Ireland, and it got played up and down and over and back across the country. And I got a chance then in 87, at the beginning of 87, I got a contract with a company called Harmac Records, and I actually recorded 2 albums for them. The first album was called I'm Gonna Make It After All.
Oh, and well, you did make it after all, Mick.
Well,
great name.
It was a great name for the first album, because I had been sort of trying for years and years and never really made it, so I got this song. It was a man called Johnny Rodriguez who recorded it, and that was the first album. And then the second album then called You're Only Young Once, and that was an original song that a man wrote from up in County Antrim, Armoy, Thomas Kinney. And then in 89, I left Harmac and I went to Ritz Records, who were very, very big in the UK and also in Ireland as well. And they had a lot of big names like Daniel O'Donnell, who was still on their label, and they had loads and loads of great acts on, Mary Duff and John Hogan. But anyway, I went to them in 89, and I did a load of stuff for them right up until 2001. And I got to play at the Wembley Festival as well, which was marvellous, and I met one of my all-time favourites, Buck Owens.
Yeah,
lovely. And I believe that they have revived the Wembley Festival just this year.
They did, Mick, a few weeks ago, and I was down at it myself, and so there was a great atmosphere down at it, and it's great to see that country music is kept alive and brought back, to be honest with you.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
So you were on what year was that, did you say?
That was in 1989, yeah, and the late Keith Whitley was on that show the same day as well, yeah, and Laurie Morgan, yeah. Okay. And Waylon Jennings, he was on then on the Sunday. We weren't there on the Sunday, but it was a marvellous experience, and there was I think that when we went on, there was about 8,000 people in the arena that day, and it was frightening, really. It was a bit nerve-wracking, you know, and but anyway, that was 89.
Yeah.
And so as I say, I did a lot of recordings for Ritz right up until 2001, and then I formed my own little record company called Schoolyard Records, which was named after the old schoolyard. And
I love that song. I remember you played that song one night I said one of your school friends is here, and that was Patsy. Do you remember Patsy?
Yes, I do indeed, yeah.
And that's the song you played for him, and he couldn't believe it. He loved it.
And I did a lot of work in England that time, actually. I did a lot of festivals like Peterborough and Morecambe, and then in 2005, I think it was, I was nominated for a Global Artist Award, which was anybody who promoted country music outside of America. It didn't include Americans, obviously, because they're the kings of country, really, aren't they? You know.
Yes.
And
who would have given you this award? Now, who was it from?
It would have come from Nashville, yeah. It would have come from Nashville, and there was countries in it like Canada and Holland and Japan and